All right, hi there. Coming at you from RIP Gym. I'm Jose Almeida, and together here with Yaxeni Oriquen, we're the two owners of RIP Gym. And again, in the spirit of continuing education for our members, we've done a few videos already. I've been kind of taking care of some medical stuff, I guess, and Yaxeni's done a few videos on actual training techniques with good form. But today we're going to cover real quickly food. Super important. Um, it depends on your goals, of course, but I think what we'll do today, because just for examples, the way bodybuilders do it, because we're really focused on food and it has to be very disciplined and weighed and measured. Not that one needs to do this for practical purposes, but if you want to really get prepped for a show, you have to pay close attention. I'm a super easy example because I'm about 200 pounds. And so how do you calculate your macros? You know, what are macros? We've talked about them before. Your protein, your carbohydrate, and your fats. So how much of this do you take in? Well, life is simple now with smartphones because you can literally go to Google and ask. There's all these calculators online. So you just find a macro calculator. They have them on bodybuilding.com. You can just ask Google a question and it'll spit it out. You can search on your own. But the idea is you need to get a sense of your weight, your fat percentage, and your basal metabolic rate. Are you in the office all day sedentary, or are you active and pushing weights? For me, 200 pounds active, my basal met is 3,000 calories. So I'm going to burn 3,000 calories a day just sitting here. So if I take in more than 3,000, I'm going to gain weight. If I take in less than 3,000, I'm going to lose weight. Or stated differently, if I take in 3,000 but increase my activity, doing more cardio, I'm going to burn it off and lose weight. Or I can take in less and do less and not change the weight. So the idea is whatever if you're taking in more than you burn, you're going to put on weight. If you're taking in less than you burn, you're going to lose weight. So that's a basic principle. So as far as your macros, chicken, egg whites, fish is going to be your protein sources. We like complex carbohydrates because they're burned slowly. You want to stay away from sugar. You want to keep your insulin levels stable. If you're eating sugar, your insulin spikes and you can't really burn evenly. So complex carbs, everybody thinks you need to eat brown rice. You don't. White rice, brown rice, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, those are the basics that we stick to. And then your vegetables. Your vegetables, basically the rule of thumb there is you want to cover the whole color spectrum throughout your day. You want greens, you want reds, red peppers, yellow peppers, all the colors, and that's where you get your vitamins and minerals and your roughage, your fiber. So protein, we're going to take it in. It's going to go into the stomach. Pepsin's going to be there, an enzyme. It's going to start breaking down the protein. It's going to go into our small intestine where the pancreas is releasing enzymes. Trypsin, chymotrypsin, break it down further. And basically, we're going to break down protein into amino acids. And we will absorb it as amino acids. So it'll first go from protein to polypeptides to smaller peptides. Then it'll go into the small intestine, get into the bloodstream, and what we use are the building blocks for the amino acids. Carbohydrates, same principle. We're going to take in a complex carbohydrate. It's going to hit the stomach. We're going to start digesting it. It's got to go to smaller saccharide units. And eventually the basic molecule is glucose. And then vegetables really is where we get our fiber, our vitamins, and minerals. So how do we do this? So again, 200 pounds, I need about 1.5 grams per pound per day of protein and carbohydrates. So that puts me at 300 grams of protein a day is what I eat. In the off season, when I'm trying to put on muscle and I need energy, The carbs are about the same, 1.5 grams per pound per day. So it works out for me 300. So I'm going to divide that over 6 meals. So this is why my numbers are easy. 50 grams a portion, a meal, times 6 is 300. So my meals are going to be 50 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, and some vegetables. And I'm going to do that 6 times. Yaxeni's a different makeup, different body weight, but she's a muscular girl. She's pretty similar numbers. In the off season, if you want to put on weight, you may want more carbs. Be careful of the protein because there's this principle of the kidneys. Even though this has really not been shown to damage the kidneys, it'll certainly strain the kidneys. So don't go too crazy trying to eat the 2 and 3 grams of protein per pound. Play more with the carbohydrates. Similarly, now we're both getting ready for shows. I'm competing next week and she's competing in 2 weeks. So we've been on low carb diet to drop the fat. So I'm eating around 100 grams of carbs a day, which is, much smaller portions. So that's how you calculate your macros. So Yaxeni, just you wake up in the morning, and how do you think about your meals? Beforehand. You don't cook your meals as you go. You probably plan your day and cook everything at once because you're going to go to the gym. You're going to store it in a bag and eat as you go, and probably plan your 6 meals. So how do you do that? So you've got some chicken, you've got some rice, do you eat the same thing all day, or do you cook different things, a little potato in one meal, and how do you go about thinking about it? And then we'll actually get into how you weigh it and calculate the carbs, because that's the difficult one, is how do you calculate the carbs. So how do you plan your day?
Yes, when I wake up around 5 a.m. in the morning, and I already know what I have to eat during the day, so I don't have to plan it or think let me see what can I eat. No, I know exactly I have to have some protein, carbohydrate, and some veggie for the whole day. So my first meal usually is chicken, rice, and veggies when I wake up, and some coffee. And I weigh this maybe 30 grams of carbohydrate, protein, chicken or fish or turkey. And I very put more attention in my carb, low carbohydrate, maybe 30 grams of carbohydrate. And usually I weigh my veggies 1 cup, 100 grams of veggies, and I do that every 3 hours.
Okay, so the difficult one is the carbs. So let's just take white rice. Go to Google. That's the beauty of smartphones. You put it right in here, and how many grams of carbohydrates in 1 ounce of rice? Okay, and there it is, and it's going to tell you. So what you got to pay attention is whether it's dry or cooked. So really, the way you need to think about this is dry rice. So 1 ounce of dry rice will yield 25 grams of carbohydrates.
Like these amounts.
Yeah, so you just weigh it, 1 ounce of dry rice. Well, if you're going to eat 6 meals throughout the day, you don't want to cook rice 6 times. You want to cook your pot of rice and then divide the meal. So let's say 300 grams. Again, using me as an example, say I want 300 grams of carbohydrates for the day. Well, that's going to be 12 ounces of dry rice. We're going to cook the whole 12 ounces, and when it comes out, now we know that there's 300 grams of carbs in there, and then the meal comes out cooked, and then you're either going to have to re-weigh it in 6 portions or eyeball it, but that's the general principle, that my 6 meals came out cooked, and I need to evenly distribute it. And of course, if the 3 grams are going in throughout the day and it's not 50 each one, it's 60 and 40, it doesn't really matter. So that's really the way to think about it. Now, if you want to complicate your day and have potatoes for part of the day and rice for part of the day, then You need to plan this out if you want to have some more variation. It's the same thing with oatmeal. You want to weigh it dry. You ask Google how many grams of carbohydrates in oatmeal. It'll tell you. And that's really it. So I guess the take-home points are you don't want to cook your meals on the fly. You want to have everything prepared for the day. We're going to leave you with one closing point. What comes out weighed is not the same of the amount of carbohydrate in it. So go ahead.
Exactly. 2 ounces like that is 50 grams of carb. But that when you weigh is 65 grams on the scale. But the carbohydrate portion is 50 grams in 2 ounces.
Yeah, so 2 ounces of dry rice yields 50 grams of carbohydrate, but when you weigh it cooked, it's 65 grams. So what you're thinking about is how many grams of carbohydrate in the dry oatmeal or the dry rice, and then what comes out, the idea is you just need to know what went into the cooking pot. That if you put in 300 grams and you wanted 6 meals out of that when it comes out, you just divide it evenly into 6.
For that reason, we recommend to put on the scale everything dry.
Yeah.
And then when you know, it's going to be easy because you know how much is after you cook, how many grams of carb, how many grams of protein you have to eat. The same with the veggie and the same with the oatmeal. Always you have to weigh this dry.
Dry. Know how much you're cooking dry, and that'll. Okay, so that's it.
That's it. And if you eat like that, maybe you can look like me.
Happy eating, happy working out. Thank you from Rip Gym. Hope you enjoyed this video.
Bye-bye.